Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're gonna be kind of building the same design that's built by Levi Wilson. Now, shout out to the amazing design that he built. Now, the link to this post will be down in the description, so you guys can check the design out. And now let's see what we have built. So this is the one that we built. So here you have, it's kind of similar to what we have, but then the only thing that we don't have is we've removed these navigations, and also we've removed these buttons as well. So just to reduce the complexity of the project. So this is how the design looks. And also we don't have a slider down here, so you guys could add that as well. And now if I refresh, you'd see cool animations here. So you see, so we have text animation, images, and then also translate animation for the tickets, call to actions. We have some delay effects as well. And yeah, the design is really neat. I think the project is pretty, I think, beginner friendly, and yeah, will teach you quite a few stuff if you're totally beginner with React, Tailwind, and also I think frame of motion as well. So we're going to be learning a lot of stuff here in this video. So yeah, the source code is in the description, so make sure to download that, play with it, tweak it, make a better version of what we have now, and also do tag me when you build one. So yeah, without any delay, let's get started and let's build this amazing project. So this is the design by Levi Wilson. Now I'll just open the image in a new tab, and I'll also add the link to the design or this post in the description so that you guys can check it out and follow him. And if you need, you can reach out to him as well. So yeah, this is the image. And so for this, for the animation part, we'd need frame motion. So you can just Google saying frame motion install React. The first link that opens up, you're gonna click on that. You're gonna go to this page, and scroll down, and this is the command to install frame motion using npm. So you're gonna copy and you're gonna install the frame motion. And yeah, so yeah, let's get started with this. So this is the app.jsx file in my VS Code. It's empty. I just have the basic boilerplate. And I've also imported the house image, which is basically the background image that you saw here. Now, many oftentimes ask me, how do I search or how do I find these images? So basically what I do is I just Google search them. So when you have an image that you want to search, so you're going to just right click, and you're going to click on this search with Google Lens, and then yeah, you can just search a specific section or portion. And yeah, you see these results. So yeah, you can go to any of these sites and then just grab the image. So yeah, I have the image already here downloaded, so I just imported it, and then in the return, I'm just returning an empty div, and so we have the blank page. Now first, we're gonna be creating the container to hold everything. So the container would have a height width of screen, which is basically 100 viewport height and 100 viewport width, and then overflow hidden, and then would set the position to relative, since the background image that you see would be absolutely placed. Then after that, we're gonna add some paddings, and then we're gonna add the image with source to the house image, and then alternate tag as background, and then the class name for the images that we're going to be using throughout the project is obviously height, width, full, object to cover, and then object position, which is this object center, which basically means that object position you want at center. And then we're going to place it absolutely, since the container that you see here would be relatively placed. So we want at least the background to be absolutely placed, and this section would be at the center. So yeah, I've set object to cover, absolute position, inset to 0, and then z index to 0. Let's save and let's see. So yeah, looks good. After that is done, we're gonna have the container. So for the container, we're gonna have height width full. Background would be transparent. Z index to 10 so that it's above the image. And for that, also we'd need the relative position just so that we could add the Z index. And then rounded to twice XL. And then we have the border with border radius. This is rounded. This is the border radius. We have the border, and then the border of the border would be white, and we have this flex. Let's save and let's see. So yeah, looks good. Now only half or the 50% would be white. Rest uh, would have it as transparent. So we'd have two containers, one for the main content, which is on the left side, and then the right side content, we have the right content. And then we'd have two divs. Both of them would have width to half, which is 50%, and then height to full. The first one would have flex and flex call, and then within that, we'd have some text here. After that text, we have the divider, which is this. I've just added the comment, and then we'd have the description for these, and then we'd have the stats here, these, and then we'd have the image. Now, in the design, you'd see that this is kind of like a carousel or a slider. So instead of adding a slider, I just added a dummy image since I didn't want the video to be too long. Now, what you could do when you pull this image from the GitHub, I mean, when you get this project from GitHub, what you could do is you could play around. You could add your own some customization. So what I'd suggest is here you could add a carousel, and then whenever you change the slide, you can basically change the background image as well. So which would make it stand out more. So if you guys want me to do it, do comment down. I'd love to add some more interactions to this design in the next video probably. So yeah. Um, with that being said, so we have the property image, and I think that's it. Yeah. After that is done, we're gonna come over to this right side section when we have the location ticket, which is this, and then we'd have a description and then a button, basically the action button. Now, yeah, that's it. So now we're gonna get started with the real meat of the project, which is adding content to these 50% divs. So we're going to get started with the text. So we want the first half to have the background white, some padding, overflow to hidden, and then we'd have a flex with width to full, wherein we have the profile images, these three images that you see. We just call them profile images, and then another div to hold the text. So for the div to hold the text, we'd have the tracking to tight. This is basically the letter spacing, and then we'd have the font size, font weight, width to fit, flex to action column, margin right, and then we'd have h2 elements with height. Now we'd have the animation effect, and for that we'd need the height, and then inside of this we'd have a span. So just to align it at the center, we'd have flex items to center, overflow to hidden, just so that when they're outside of the box, they're completely hidden. And then would have the same h2 repeated once again. So for the first one, would have the span with reserve your, and then for the second one, would have ideal holiday. And with that, let's save. Yeah, looks good. Then would have the profile images with flex, width and height, flex wrap, gap to 1, and then would have the div for the first image. So the first image would have a higher width and height, and then rounded to full, and then would have the image, the class name. As I've said, all the images have height, width to full, object also cover, and rounded to full as well. And yeah, let's save. Looks good. Now, the subsequent images would be a bit smaller, the second one and the third one. So the second one would have height 7, width 7, and then the third one would have a height 9 and width 9. Let's save. Let's see. Looks good. After that is done, we're gonna start with the divider. So the divider has a text, and then after that we have this line, sort of. I think they're using an arrow, but then we just use a simple line. So we'd have the div with flex, some margin top and bottom. Instead of MT5 and MB5, you could just add MY5. I don't know why I have here two of them separately. So yeah. And then we could have item center just so that the text and then the line aligns at the center. And then after that, we could have width to full gap 5, the text inside of p tag with some styling. And then for the line would have height to 1 pixel, width to full, and then the opacity would be I think 10% of black. So let's save. Looks good. Now we're done with the divider as well. Now let's move to the description. So for the description, we'd have flex width to full gap 6, and then we'd have the span, which says 0.5. So when you're building the slider, so what you could do is you could also change these text. So for each individual slider that is shown here, you could also maybe change the text. I think that'd be cool as well. And also, if you want, you can also play with these statistics. So that'd be cool as well. Yeah, so we're done with that. And then we'd have the p tag for the description, real text. So here we'd have the leading to 1.3, which is I think line height. Yeah. And then we'd have text to small. The text we just added here. And then we'd have the call to action button, or the action button, whatever you may call. So this button, same CSS we're going to be using for the action button in the right side as well. So we'd have width and height. Now generally for buttons, we don't generally use width because we want the buttons, if you have a longer text, you don't want the text to be flowing out of the container. So we generally use padding, but here I just add width just so that we could have it a bit wider. Even though I could have added padding, but then I just added width. So width, height, rounded full, flex items to center, and justify content to center as well, so that we have the more text and also the arrow SVG at the center. And then some styling for the text, and we're going to add the text and then the SVG. Now, where did I get the SVG? So the SVG is from Lucid Icons. So you can just search for Lucid Icons, and you can go to the icons and you can click on any icon. Let's say this one. And then so when you build a project in React, you can install Lucid Icons, or what you could do is, if you have only few of icons used, you could, instead of installing them, you can just copy the SVG and you can paste it there. So now we're going to do for the stats. Now, as you can see, we have here 3 stats. Now, instead of adding 3 separate divs for these, what we could do is we could have an array of object here. So first, let's create the container. So for the container would be flex width to full, items center, justify between, and then would have the margin y as 5 as well. And then would have the array of objects. The first one would have value as 115K, then label as this, and then I just paste in the other two as well. And then we could map through these and then add the different stats. So obviously you could have added an object or this array outside of this app. Here you could have defined a variable maybe, but then I think it's fine. Yeah, so once that is done, we'd map through them, would check for each stat with index, and then would add a React fragment, and then here would add the key, would add this div with flex gap to 0 flex column, and then here would add the stat value and then the stat label. Let's save. Looks good. Now you'd see that we need this line sort of, or maybe this vertical divider kind of. So here we could add this divider. Let's save. All right. Now there's a problem with this, and that is even for the third one, there's a divider, but we don't really want. So what we could do is here we could add a condition that would basically check, add the divider for the first and second, but don't add it for the third one. So if the index is greater than 2, just don't add the divider. Let's save. And there you have it. Now, this could be more dynamic, but then the focus of this video is not to make it too dynamic. I just wanted to show you how you could build a layout using Tailwind in React and also add a bit of animation. So yeah, so we have the stats as well done. Then we can add the property image, so which is just this, width to 90%, min height and max height, and then margin X auto, and then margin top to auto with rounded 3XL, overflow to hidden, and then we just add the image, and then would add the style as width full, height full, and an object cover. Let's save, and yeah, looks good. Now would style the right side. So here, as you can see, I've already added a relative positioning here, because if you look at the design, you see that we have kind of like a gradient here. So to add the gradient inside of this, we'd need an absolute positioned div with linear gradient. So we set the position of the parent as relative, and then would add flex call, and then would add the div with absolute positioning inset to 0 with linear gradient. This obviously it's a bit difficult to add the percentage of how much you want the gradient to spread, which is relatively easy in CSS. But then here I've just added the gradient to be from top to bottom with no specific percentage. So yeah. And then the z index would be 0. Let's save, and yeah, looks good. Now see, since we don't add any percentage, you'd see the gradient spreads too wide, so it's almost taking 50% of the image, which is not the case in the design. So if you add specific percentage, you can exactly mimic how the design is. So yeah, we won't be doing that. So we have the div ready, and then would now get started with the location ticket. So for the ticket, would add text to small relative, since this is absolute. So we need relative positioning for the ticket, and then also z index. So relative, and then z index to 10, just so that it can be seen above the the overlay. And then once that is done, you're gonna add flex, background white with some styling for the font and line height as well. And then the border, 10 pixels, border white, rounded to 2XL, some margin top and left. Let's save. Looks good. Now we'd add the div with the text, which is basically the address or the location. And then we'd add the div for the arrow icon. So height, width, rounded, full, flex, item center, justify center, background to black, and then text would be white, margin top 3, and then we'd add the SVG. Looks good. Now we need to add the image inside of the ticket. So for that, we'd add the image, we'd add width to 24, height to 20, object cover, rounded to 2XL, and that's it. Now we'd add the location description. We'd have the p tag, the class name, some text styling, some padding, margin, leading as relax, which is line height of this. And then z index width would be half, and then we'd add the text. All right. Then we'd add the button, which is almost similar to what we have here, but then this doesn't really have the width of 96 or whatever we gave here, specific width, but this is more kind of like a dynamic stuff. So here would have the z index, relative, a different background color, text to black, margin y, margin left, padding, height. We have a height here though, and then we have the width to fit, and yeah, I think that's it. And then everything at the center with these line of code. So we're gonna add the text, the SVG. Let's save. Yeah, looks good. So we're done with the design. Now all that we have to do is add the animation. So for the animation, I've already shown you how you could install framer motion. So we just import the motion here. Now this motion, if you have seen my previous videos wherein I've shown you how you could animate text and SVGs with framer motion. So this is relatively easier compared to GSAP. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding the motion as the prefix to all the different elements which we want them to animate. So here I just add all the different motion divs, and then we're going to get started with the animation. So first, what we want to do is the background image, the main image that we see, we want it to basically scale in. So we'd have, initially it would have scale 1.1, but then it would animate to scale 1, which is the original size. And then the transition would have a duration of 1.5 seconds. Let's save. You see, looks good. Let's refresh. Yeah. All right, looks good. And then would have the animation for the text. Now here we have the motion spans. So what we could do is first the main div would have initial opacity of 0, and then it would animate to having opacity of 1 with transition with duration of 0.8 seconds. And then the span inside would have, initially they would be outside of the box or the container, so they won't be visible. But then they would come back to their original translate y value, which is 0, with transition of duration this, with a bit of delay, and then ease effect of ease out. Now, the second text or the second span would have a bit of higher delay. The reason for that is we want the first one to be shown a bit earlier compared to the second one. Now, let's save. Let's refresh. See, looks good. Yeah. Now, once that is done, we're going to get started with images. So I could have added separate motion divs, but then I didn't want the video to be long. You guys can obviously add that and play with it. So here I would directly add the animation to the div, which holds all the 3 images. So we'd have initial to this, final to this, and then this is the duration and delay. And then would have some animation to the divider as well. Initial and animate value to this, transition to this, for the text as well, for the description, for the call to action button as well, and then for the stats. Now, each of the different stats that we see, if you have seen the preview, they all get kind of like the staggered effect which we had in GSAP. So all of them have a different delay. So to add different delays, what we could do is we could have another key value pair here as delay 1 second, delay 1.1, and then delay 1.2. And then we could add this delay in each of the separate stats. So what we could do is initially would be this, finally would be this, but in the transition would have the delay. Now the delay would be based on what they individually are. So the first one has 1 second, the second one has 1.1, and the third one would have 1.2. Let's save. Let's refresh. You see, all 3 of them have a different delays. Looks good. Now we have to add animation for the property image. So we'd have the initial and then the final and then the transition as well as with the delay. And then for the right content, so for the ticket, we want the ticket to basically slide in from left side, basically horizontal animation. So for that, we'd have initial to this, final to this. So this is basically the main container and not the ticket. So the ticket would have opacity 0, X, which is basically for horizontal animation or basically horizontal translate X. So initially it would be -20, and then the final would be X to 0. So there's that. And then we could have the transition and then the delay. And then in the description as well, would add the animation, the transition, and then in the action button as well. And let's save. Let's refresh. And there we have it. So hopefully this video was fun. Hopefully you learned some amazing stuff. So this is it for the video. The source code is in the description, so make sure to download that and play with it. And as I've said, so this can be done way better. Now this was just to show you how could mimic a design that you get. So, and then for the animation part, you can play around. You could add your own um creativity to the animation. And then also for this, you could add the slider as I've said, and then on changing a slide here, it would get reflected on the background image as well. So that'd be really cool as well. So yeah, you guys can play with that, have fun. So that's it for this video. Meet you guys in the next. So till then, bye bye, take care.